Hello again. We are continuing today our readings from the book What is Man? Adam, Alien, or Ape? And in one sense, we have finished our consideration of man's relationship with the biosphere, and we completed chapter 8 in the last podcast in this series. However, there is one subject that could be classified as a biological issue, but it is also a spiritual and mental issue. And that really deserves a section of the book all on its own. And as we begin chapter 9, we shall be looking at the vexed question of the relationship between mind and brain. There are very many people, atheists, of course, who suppose that the mind is simply an emanation of the working of the brain, and that it is meaningless because the activity of the brain is the reality which we somehow misinterpret as being independent thought. Well, this is referred to by philosophers as the hard question. And we're going to look at the hard question to see if there might be some answers that are not as difficult as they may seem. And so we begin chapter 9 of the book, which incidentally, if you are interested, is still available online in paperback and electronic form. Chapter 9 is entitled Aristotle and the Snowball, and you'll find out why I've chosen that title later in this chapter. But the subheading is On Human Consciousness. And the chapter begins with a quotation from J.B.S. Haldane in 1927. Quotation. It seems to me immensely unlikely that mind is a mere byproduct of matter. For if my mental processes are determined wholly by the motions of atoms in my brain, I have no reason to suppose that my beliefs are true. They may be sound chemically, but that does not make them sound logically. And hence, I have no reason for supposing my brain to be composed of atoms. In order to escape from this necessity of sawing away the branch on which I am sitting, so to speak, I am compelled in my belief that mind is not wholly conditioned by matter. Now, J.B.S. Haldane was not an atheist, he was an agnostic. He did not necessarily believe in God or any spiritual reality, but he did not necessarily disbelieve them either. So after that chapter subheading, the book continues. How would you like to live in an ultra-modern, high-tech house with its own beautifully laid out gardens and private yard. Built on 4 levels, it has a basement, ground floor living accommodation, a mezzanine entertainment suite, and a top floor bedroom level. On the ground floor there are a variety of windows that look out upon the world around you. The same is true of the mezzanine level, except that there the window glass is coloured, affecting the way you see the wider outside world. The bedrooms don't have any windows, only video wall displays that can be changed at the touch of a button. The basement contains things you seldom use, together with an automatic heating plant and a lot of quiet machinery that keeps the house in tip-top working order without you having to do anything or even being aware of it. How about the grounds? They are tended by robots controlled automatically from the basement complex. The lawns are cut, watered, and fertilized whenever sensors buried in the turf signal a need for attention. The trees are pruned and their fruit picked as required. The vegetable garden and greenhouse yield produce without any conscious effort on your part. Would you like to live there? I hope so, because you already do. I'm not, of course, referring to a timber bricks and mortar home, but to the human body and mind that each of us inhabits. The garden represents your body. The house represents your brain, and you, the occupant, represent your mind. Note well the distinction between mind and brain, since it is a distinction that many neuroscientists deny, as we shall see. As you relax in your sitting room, you can mentally survey the contents of the ground floor and observe the activity in progress there, the internal things that you are actually conscious of. Or you can gaze out of a window and watch objects and events in the landscape beyond your property. Let's call this outside world reality. The cellar is stacked with things that occupy your subconscious mind, along with the brain-controlled machinery that keeps your blood flowing, your lungs breathing, and your whole body functioning smoothly without conscious effort on your part. On the mezzanine floor, you keep your beliefs, morals, prejudices, opinions, convictions, and such like things that constitute your worldview. Like the window glass in our illustration, these things color your understanding of reality, the landscape of the world around you. This coloration, in turn, affects your attitudes and actions, sometimes without you realizing it. Finally, you can go upstairs to sleep, where you lose all consciousness of your surroundings, even though your brain is still as busy as ever, running the machinery of life, and sorting out your tangled thoughts in nonsensical dreams. Let's call this house and garden illustration the analogy, with a capital letter to distinguish it from other analogies. Subheading: Explanations and definitions. We'll meet Aristotle and the snowball later in the chapter. But before we go any further, I want to make several things clear. First, please understand that the analogy is not a theory of human consciousness or mind-body interaction. It is simply a device to help us understand the issues covered in this chapter. Secondly, unless otherwise stated, I shall use words like mind, intelligence, and consciousness to refer exclusively to human beings. This is not to deny that animals and even lower organisms have nervous systems, brains, intelligence, the capacity to observe, learn, and communicate, the ability to react to stimuli, and so on. They obviously do possess these things, sometimes weakly, sometimes to a high degree. But in our quest to discover what is man, our focus here is on the human dimension. And I would rather not have to qualify every reference to minds and brain by adding the descriptor human. Thirdly, I use the word mind to signify the sum of a person's self-awareness or self-knowledge of identity, unconscious thoughts, will, desires, memories, beliefs, abstract concepts and emotions, plus anything else that has no material or physical existence. All of those things I group under the term mind. It thus includes such things as soul and spirit, terms I won't develop in this chapter, but which we'll consider later under the biblical view of man. Fourthly, we need to be aware of the various theories of human consciousness and the so-called mind-body problem. So we are going to consult some realtors or estate agents. I'll use realtor for brevity. Don't worry, I'm just extending the analogy. In real life, the realtors and home agents we shall meet represent various schools of philosophical thought. Just like realtors, they may be good, bad, or mediocre, and we need to learn to tell the difference. Subheading: What is your life worth? Pursuing the analogy, then, you decide to find out what your home is worth. Being a careful sort of person, you will seek opinions from 3 different realtors, but will also be prepared for their estimates to differ profoundly. I'll summarize here and work out the details later. Realtor number 1 walks into your house ignoring you completely. When you ask why he is behaving so badly, he replies, Why should I take any notice of you, seeing that you don't exist? The property is just an unoccupied machine, and mind is a myth. Realtor number 2 is much nicer, but she seems doubtful about the house. I don't think it's worth much, but it would be different if it wasn't haunted. Haunted, you splutter? What do you mean, haunted? Show me the ghost. Well, comes the apologetic reply, I am talking to it. You may think you're a real person, but you are actually just a kind of emanation from all that machinery downstairs. You do exist, but only as a byproduct of the house. You have no independent existence, no strength, control, influence, or power over the house or its grounds. You're just some kind of radiation field emitted by the house. Realtor number 3 is more to your liking. In his opinion, you actually exist as a person. You own and enjoy the property, and you can, if you choose, exercise some control over the machinery in the basement. What is more, you have the capacity to leave your home and go elsewhere without losing your identity or ceasing to exist. Hopefully, the foregoing sketches will help us understand the personal implications of the actual theories of human consciousness, or some of them, which are on offer today. So we are going to consider these theories in turn and try to work out which of them makes the most sense. Well, that is a suitable point at which to end this first reading from chapter 9 of the book, What is Man, Adam, Alien, or Ape? I have introduced the analogy, as I call it, which is intended purely to help us understand the distinctions between those things which are automatically controlled by the brain and its activity, by atoms and neurons, electrical contacts, and the like. The difference between that and your conscious self and your outlook and view of the world around you. Just an analogy to help us identify these differences and the differences themselves. We're going to look at one by one in what follows and in subsequent podcasts.